to ignore changes in society, the fact that people want to be treated equally, the social justice discussions that are happening around our BAME community member, LGBTQ members, and the intersectionality, the issues where there's an intersection between your gender, your sexuality, your race, and all of that means to society, giving everyone access and freedom to be as good as they want to be and to flourish in our society. That's where society's going. And if we ignore that as businesses, we ignore it at our peril, really, because we'll be turning new recruits off, we'll be turning customers off, and we'll be missing new business opportunities. So there's a really strong business case, as well as a case that's a moral case, really, for all of us to think about how we behave, how we can educate ourselves, and choose to challenge. So without further ado, I'd like to move into the first section. I should say that there's really three sections to this hour. Firstly, I've got the great privilege of having the chance to talk with Julia, and for her to explain more about the work that she's done so far and her book. We then have a panel with people that have worked with Julia already, talking about the work that they have done and the positive effect and their challenges as well that they've had. And then the third panel is with some people from the construction industry that MEPC is working with, and Julia's just started working with us, so we're at the start of all of this. So you get some different perspectives and different voices in this hour. So Julia, really want to look at how your book, Change the Game, how that aligns with the International Women's Day theme, Choose to Challenge, and to find out more about you and the Automotive 30% Club and why you wrote the book. Just going to say a few words about your achievements so far, and the fact that you're the Chief Executive of the Automotive 30% Club because you set it up. You're Vice President of the Automotive Fellowship International, and you've been named the FT and Heroes top 100 women each year for the last 4. And you are a Silverstone Technology Cluster Ambassador, and you're one of the members of the Gender Equality and Diversity Committee. Over 25 years experience in automotive retail, in manufacturing and consulting, worked in UK, Germany and Spain. And the work that you've been doing recently is to help employers to take action to create inclusive, gender balanced talent pools. So I know that the book draws on a number of these experiences, and we'll be hearing more from Penny Weatherup and Stuart Miles about that shortly. You've also organised the Inspiration for Innovation events with students in schools, getting them positive interactions with employers. And we'll also hear from Diane Fisher from Kingsthorpe School in Northampton shortly on that. Julia worked with me and still working with me to help the businesses at Silverstone Park and in Silverstone Technology Cluster to engage with schools, and that's been a really successful programme, and like I say, also involved in Women into Construction. So Julia, welcome, and thank you for allowing us to launch your book in this time.
Thank you very much, Ros, and thanks so much for hosting this event with so many people.
It's great. No, it's great to see a good turnout, and testament to the fact that this is a serious subject that we all really need to start getting our heads around, and this will hopefully give everyone a very quick insight into all the things they need to do next. So welcome everybody. So can I ask you first then, just starting with, why did you found the Automotive 30% Club, and why does the 30%, why do you refer to 30%? Why is it important?
Okay, well, it actually is quite aligned to the theme of International Women's Day in terms of choosing to challenge, because having spent many years working in the sector, and as you mentioned, moving to Germany and Spain to work, and then came back to the UK, and I was teaching on the automotive executive programs at Loughborough University that I'd helped to set up when I was in Ford many years before. And I was shocked to see that there were no women on these leadership development programs. So despite the fact that, you know, back in the early 90s, we'd thought, well, obviously the women will come through quite soon. Still, after all those years, there were no women being put forward or putting themselves forward for such programs. So I decided to investigate why, and I went through to visit a few of my old colleagues that I'd worked with at Ford Motor Company, but were now running some of the larger companies in the UK in the automotive sector, and asked them why this was. And they were, you know, quite taken aback really, because they'd not been overtly conscious of the fact that there were still few women in their organisations. They felt that they were inclusive leaders, but that hadn't actually kind of taken note that there weren't many women still coming through to leadership roles. So I decided to do something about that, to take responsibility for making it happen, and to set up this campaign with the support and you know, endorsement of, it was actually 12 leaders to begin with, and then it's now over 40. And the way that I went about it was not to seek permission from the institutions that already existed in the sector, which was something that I'd been advised I would have to do. You've got to go to the various bodies, you know, trade bodies, etc., and get their buy-in. And I decided, well, I chose to challenge that and thought, well, if they actually were going to be fully passionate about this, they'd probably already have done something. And so I decided to set up a completely separate entity, because I don't tend to ask for permission for things when I decide to do stuff, and created the campaign through involving the leaders as individuals, but bringing them together in a network that would collaborate to work on this very important issue, because it was clear to me, you know, I've done the research, that gender balanced businesses are more successful. So, you know, irrespective of the moral argument for women's equality, there is this very firm business case for it too. And the second part of the question, why 30%?
Yes, 30%.
Well, there was when I studied my business degree a long time ago, I was very struck by a particular professor called Rosabeth Moss-Cantor, who identified in her work that, in fact, in order to get a cultural change within a group, you only really needed to change the dynamics of the group by having around a third of that group being the minority. So I'll just rephrase that a little bit better. In a group, as long as the minority becomes at least a third, then the group starts to accept them and takes their opinions on board and listens to them, and therefore the cultural change starts to happen that is inclusive of that minority. So it struck me that we didn't actually have to have 50% to achieve that. It starts at a tipping point of a third. So hence the hard work is to get to that third and to get those people listened and included to, and then it's hopefully it can fly from that point.
Brilliant, thank you. And so why did you write the book, and what's its purpose? What's that? That seems like a next step since that. How long have you been? When did you say you founded the Automotive 30% Club? So how many years have you worked on that? And then what was that? Why was the book the next step, I suppose?
I founded the club in 2016, and the answer to the question is really, there's two parts to it. One is, why write a book, and then why write this book? So the reason I wrote a book was that I'd always wanted to write a book, because as a young child in school, that was the future that everyone thought I was going to have. They thought I was going to be an author.
Right.
And in fact, it was creative writing, fiction stories that, you know, many of my teachers told me later that they'd kept my stories in case I became famous one day.
Wow.
So I was actually, it's one of those things where you think, oh, you know, I never fulfilled that potential because I went into business. And then I was appearing on a Radio Sheffield programme, and they asked me, what was your biggest regret? And I said that I've never done what I might, you know, fulfill my destiny of being an author. And luckily for me, an old school colleague who was a publisher was listening in and contacted me afterwards and said, yes, you definitely need to get that book out of you, Julia. She didn't write, she didn't publish non-fiction, but she put me in touch with a woman who runs a publishing organisation that runs a competition for you to submit business books. So I entered the competition and I won the publishing contract.
Right.
So that's the story about how the book came about. But why write about this? Well, it's very simple, really. On my journeys of connecting with lots of leaders and business people, I found myself repeating myself over and over again, the same case studies, the same data, the same stories, and I thought it'd be a lot easier if I just wrote it down and then handed it out to everyone and said, just read this, it'll be a lot quicker, you know, probably only take you know, a day to get through it, and then you'll all have it here and then we'll all be on the same page. So that was the reason behind putting it all in one place in a book.
And I think it is really helpful in that way because you know, we talk about the subject in various events like this one and others that we've hosted. There's so much good stuff being said and people, the pennies dropping with people. To be able to signpost them to the book and to read that is, you know, if people don't do anything else today, if they buy your book then and read it, then that will be a massive leap forward. And like you say, it is all in there. And it feels right. I should mention now, I will mention it again at the end, that there's a special offer on your book today, isn't there, that everyone needs to know about. So you can go today between 12 and 1 on Amazon and buy the ebook, the Kindle version for 99p. So if people aren't sure what to do next, then going on Amazon and buying the ebook and reading it, clearly, it is a good next step. One thing I wanted to ask you about some of the themes in the book. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was something that I just loved the phrase when I read it, and it's the first time I've come across it, so apologies if it's common parlance to others in the room today, but you talk about the abundance mindset and the difference between that and the scarcity mindset in the world of business. I just wondered if you could tell us a bit more about the importance of the abundance mindset.
Yes, it's actually, since I found out about it, I've begun to spot it everywhere, actually, right, and how it affects humans and our decision making. So just to kind of take it back to the main start of this, the point is it's about the zero-sum game. So if anyone's studied economic theory or business studies, they'll have heard of the zero-sum game. But it's basically a situation where if one person wins, another one has to lose. But what I make the point of is that gender equality isn't a zero-sum game. If a woman wins, it doesn't mean that a man needs to lose. And if only one side wins, it creates a dent in the relationships, and so the culture wouldn't be inclusive. So I maintain that both men and women benefit and win from being in a gender-balanced organisation. And we need to cultivate this abundance mindset in our teams rather than a scarcity mindset. So a scarcity mindset sees that there's a limited availability of everything, so that the person feels that they have to compete for scarce resources or compete for few jobs. An abundancy mindset sees that collaboration amongst people achieves more success for everyone, and that defining everything as a competition that must be won means someone unnecessarily loses. So those with a scarcity mindset who've been waiting for senior roles won't want new competition from diverse women, and because they might see their slice of that top management pie getting smaller. But people who benefit from practices and norms at the moment may resist any change when that apparent advantage disappears. And this kind of fixed pie mentality is a real big barrier to problem solving and creativity, because competition becomes focused internally within the company instead of externally. So if people feel threatened by internal competition and new entrants, they're going to not want you to be looking out, reaching out to new talent pools and bringing in fresh people. So it's really important that we communicate that gender balance isn't a zero-sum game, that there doesn't need to be winners and losers, and that everyone wins if the company is more successful, because then jobs are more secure, rewards are high, and if we all work together, we all win. And what they know from research is that women's employment rates are higher where men are more confident in their own security and ability and have a more favourable view of women as equals, and that they understand how a gender balance leads to better business performance and in fact also up their game. So the way to address this is to introduce effective succession planning as well in your organisation, because it ensures that everybody has a career plan, so people don't feel as though they're necessarily going to lose out if someone else gets a particular role, because they've got a career plan that's set out for them in a different path. Because what we find is that people quite often have very unrealistic career progression thoughts, and that in fact they need to have these conversations with senior management that would set out what a realistic career plan is for them. And therefore they don't aggressively compete for things that aren't, for jobs that aren't actually theirs as such, and also they're more likely to accept that somebody, no matter whether they're a woman or whether they're a person of colour, actually are the best person for the job.
Brilliant. And I think that's the way society's going as well, isn't it? It's not about competition and trying to put someone else down for your own benefit, you know, to gain something yourself. It's about working collaboratively and thinking about just how much there is out there, that problems that need solving, and you know, businesses to run, and there's just many opportunities. And like you say, we need to focus on the opportunities and the problem solving out there, rather than getting stuck in a rut competing with each other inside the company. Okay, great. I'm conscious of time. I just wanted to ask you one last question before we go into the panel, which is how you'd encourage the audience to choose to challenge.
Well, I think I've actually written an article on this today that will be out in some of the motor trade press, and it's really the most important thing we have to remember is that many women in many male-dominated organisations are at a disadvantage because of the fact that the leadership in the organisation may show tacit agreement by their silence about inappropriate behaviour or sexual harassment. So what I would say that the most important message for today is we can do a lot in terms of planning to recruit more women, to want to attract more women into our organisations, to educate and lead our men and women in our organisations about the importance of gender balance and about the benefits that it brings. But we won't retain women in our organisations unless there are environments in which women can thrive. And in my conversations with many of the leaders, not only in the automotive sector, but in many others, it's very clear that there has been a kind of assumption in male leaders' minds that this kind of behaviour went away at some point at the end of the 20th century. But you know, what we know, and we know from a Radio 5 Live poll in 2017 that 53% of women in the workplace have suffered from sexual harassment, and of those 10% were actually sexually attacked or abused. And that's just not acceptable. And we have to choose to challenge that women stay quiet, that people don't want to talk about it because it feels uncomfortable, that men don't know that it's going on, because of course most of them aren't doing it or seeing it. It is always a minority that are the perpetrators in this. And the culture and the processes often rely on the woman or the victim having to speak out and step forward, and therefore face all the potential ramifications that could come from that. And it's not just the worst kind of behaviour, which is obviously sexual harassment. It's microaggressions or things like gaslighting, where people over a period of time undermine the confidence of a woman, and kind of, so she's really feels as though she's not, her self-esteem is very low, through jokes and banter. So I think the important thing that we have to all do today is, if we can all make it, and if leaders can make a commitment that this behaviour in their organisation is inappropriate and unacceptable, and to model what professional behaviour in the 21st century looks like to their staff, and then shows zero tolerance of people who ignore that as and encourage the entire organisation to take this on as their responsibility to stop it happening. It's not the woman's, the individual victim's responsibility. It's their male colleagues, it's their managers, it's their female colleagues, it's the whole organisation that will stand together to say no more. We choose to challenge, that we're not going to, that is a situation that women just have to put up with.
I think we did a on YouTube, and Pim will send a link to everybody after this, I'm sure. We did a 2-hour discussion. It was our first STC Gender Equality and Diversity Committee meeting, and in that, some people bravely spoke up about some of their negative experience, sexual harassment and sexual abuse, which has affected their careers, or they've had to manage that as well as everything else in their lives. And it is really powerful to listen to. And if you, so what I'm saying, I suppose, to everybody in the room is, if you want to bring that to life and see how it's affected people, it is in that YouTube discussion. Well, it was an STC discussion that's now on YouTube. So we'll send a link to that to follow that up. And the thing that I think we said there was, even if the perpetrator is your best sales manager, it still should be dealt with as gross misconduct. But like you say, a lot of people would be surprised to hear that those things still go on. And it's not everyone, but it can be a big spoiler in an organisation, and it's something that everyone needs to be prepared to deal with, and deal with it right. Well, thanks so much, Julia, for talking a little bit. I'm sorry we can't spend the whole hour, because it's so interesting. People have to buy the book, and if you go on to Amazon today, you will be able to get a copy of that. There's a specific time, as I said, 12 till 1 p.m. today on Amazon, to be able to get the ebook for 99p. So now, Julia, you stay on, and then if I could ask Penny Weatherup, HR Director for Volkswagen Group UK, to join us, and Stuart Miles, MD UK and Ireland for Keyloop, which was previously CDK Global, and also Diane Fisher, who's Strategic Careers Lead at Kingsthorpe College in Northampton. And obviously we have Julia here as well. And the aim really for this next session is to get a chance to hear from all of you about the work that you've been doing already with Julia over the years, and working in automotive, featured in the book, I believe. At least I know that Penny and Stuart, your businesses and the work that you've done with Julia is featured in the book. And all of you are inclusive leaders, and you will leave a positive legacy by building that inclusive and therefore diverse company. So it's going to be really great to hear from you. And Diane, with all the work, I know you're working with us at Silverstone Park, but you were already working with Julia, inspiring students. So it'd be great to hear that perspective as well. So what I'll do is, if I just have a question for each of you, and then there's a sort of question at the end to come back to. So Penny, if I could come to you first, could you tell us about the time you've spent working with Julia, and also in Volkswagen Group UK, what you're doing to improve the gender balance and become more inclusive.
Thanks,
And welcome,
Roz.
by the way, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. And congratulations, first of all, to Julia on the formal launch of your book. It's a delight to be here today. I'm going to focus on 2 or 3 different areas, just in the interest of time. But firstly, the first area is data. And in Julia's book specifically, she talks about the 6 steps to success. And the first point I think in there is know your data. And that was where we started from as Volkswagen Group UK. It's core to how we assess our progress against our diversity and inclusion programme. Because if you know your data, you can track the progress. And it's helped us to assess what works well and hasn't worked so well, and also helped us reprioritise our focus and our energies on those targets and those actions that have really made a difference. So just a little bit of data to start with. Our senior representation target is 30% by 2021. Julia will recall we set that target back around 2015, 2016, and 2021 seemed a long time away at that point in time. We accelerated the target, which was from 2025. We thought we could achieve it by 2021. As at the end of last year, we're at 24%. We didn't quite achieve our target last year of 27%, but we have moved it on massively from where we started from, which was 16.8%. And that is the representation of managers, senior managers in our business, in our organisation. So our females are at 24%. So our learning from that was be careful how you set your targets, be ambitious, but also there does need to be a touch of realism over the top of it as well. What has worked really well for us is how we've improved our female talent pipeline, our pull-through roles, if you like. So the level below our management population, that's increased by 26 females, and we're now at 45% there. So we're almost at a 50% balance for male and female at that level, which then starts to give us real traction in terms of pulling females through as well as males into those more senior roles, because we're growing our population, growing our talent in that cohort. And we've also seen a really increased representation in our more on our early careers programs. So as at last year and this 2019 and 2020, when we look at the representation of females on our student programs, that has actually been up at 85% females. So we've seen a big shift, and I'll come on to why I think that's changed in a moment. We focus on every touch point in our employee life cycle, from hiring, pardon my timer, from hiring to succession planning, how we assess performance, calibration and potential. And we ask ourselves those questions about diversity at every step in that life cycle. So it's always a challenge. What does the diversity look like? What does the gender balance look like when we are nominating people through for our talent programs? Gender shortlisting was a step that we took, and it wasn't a wholly popular step, but it has made a difference. So we have a target for 50% shortlisting, gender balance on all of our internal and our external hiring. We don't always achieve it, but we have to understand why we're not achieving it if we allow that role to go forward without having achieved that balance. And then internally, we've also got mentoring schemes. We have reverse mentoring, and we have myself and my colleagues on the board of management also sponsor a female talent to help them with their confidence, their career planning, and helping them target on roles internally that they might want to pursue. So they've got support from a senior level, we've got support through our processes and our activity, and then we've also got support through our employee network groups, which is something that we built on just recently. So we get a groundswell of view and employee-led activity around our diversity. So one of those work streams is Driven Women, and that really focuses on speaker programs, development, confidence training for women who are interested in progressing their careers through the group. But also it opens some of our female colleagues' eyes to what's available and what they can be aspiring to achieve in terms of their career as well. But that's employee-led, and that is really powerful in that space. So it's not the senior representatives in the organisation saying how it should be, it's something that comes through conversation and shared experiences, which is really powerful. And I think then the final thing I'll just mention, which relates back to the representation on our student programmes, we have an Inspire work stream internally. It's heavily supported by our early careers cohorts, our graduates and our undergraduate programme. And that reaches out to schools, and we were talking about this earlier, schools, universities, and also other younger generation groups like the Scouts, to promote the automotive industry, but also to talk about opportunities that are available, the changing landscape of our industry, and why it is an aspirational career for women and men to choose in the future. And that has given us a huge reach out. So I think last year we attained, we reached over 1,200 children by our outreach Inspire workstream activities. So I'm hoping that gives you a bit of a breadth over the number of things that we do. I'm conscious of time. I don't want to take up time from my colleague speakers here, but I'm very, very happy to share further information with anybody if that would help.
Thank you, Penny, and thank you for that offer, because I think especially the group that's on the next panel, where we've just at the start of all of this, hearing about all the fronts that you're working on and the importance of the data and things, that's just where we are with Julia in the discussion. And that's why it's great that we could get the chance to hear from you and Stuart and Diane on this, because I think it is inspiring to hear all the work that's going on, and it's real work that you're doing to make this change, and it's starting to happen, which is exciting. So Stuart, welcome. I wonder, could you say a bit about working with Julia as well, and what Keyloop is doing to create the diverse workforce and through your inclusive leadership?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks, Ros. And diversity is certainly, diversity and inclusion is an area that Keyloop have been focusing on for some time. In particular, I'm going to focus on 3 elements, but I just cannot underestimate the power of understanding your data that Penny has just taken us through. But I'm going to focus on really collaboration and network. And I know, Diane, you're going to talk about the work with the Inspiration for Innovation Network, and I just want to touch on why that's important for CDK. So we've been, sorry, CDK, Keyloop now, we've just changed. Keyloop have been proud to sponsor the Inspiration for Innovation Network, and what that does is enables us to work with like-minded businesses from automotive and tech to inspire diverse secondary school pupils to choose careers, or at least become aware of the roles that are open to them. And we face the challenge, and it's highlighted in the book here, that women make up only 17% of tech roles in the UK and only 16% of automotive roles in the UK. And at Keyloop, we're at the basically we're tech supporting automotive, so we've got a double whammy of a problem here, and we need to get on top of that. And the network has really given us an opportunity to have direct engagement with the school pupils. We've opened up about our industry, breaking down any barriers or misconceptions that can develop at a very early age. And through the sponsorship, we've supported 7 schools. We've encouraged speaking opportunities, speed networking sessions with the student, where once they get over the first question of how much do you earn, they then move on to deeper questions. But that's been really encouraging and allows us to talk about the industry, and it's the starting point really of where we are with our inclusion strategy for the many years ahead. And you need to get that future talent, the prospects, and open up your industry and show that it's inclusive sector to all, to break down those misconceptions before. And we do run a very successful graduate program, and I'm delighted that all of or most of our UK graduates put themselves forward to help in this school and student engagement activities, because I've got to be honest here, that the graduates are closest in terms of school age to the school population. So, it's great that they can get involved and build the rapport with the students. The second area is we're also working with universities. So from secondary schools to universities, we've launched a competition called Dealer Tech. And it's working with students, asking them to develop ideas that can improve automotive. So it's getting them to think about our industry from their point of view. And we've got 18 teams now from across the UK and Ireland that are to be judged on great ideas that they can bring to our scheme. And the idea there is that It supports diverse future talent at a time when opportunities are limited for students. You know, there's a prize, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that encourages some of the teams of £10,000 or 10,000 beer tokens, however you look at it as a student. But what I would say is that the idea of working with schools and students, we hope that we can encourage more to really look at automotive and tech from a women's perspective as a career choice. And lastly, very quickly, just about being a patron of the 30% Club. As a patron, it's my responsibility that we can showcase our amazing industry. The automotive sector does produce creative and technology-based opportunities that not everybody's aware of. And in tech, here's a stat: Computer Weekly said that 67% of UK tech companies are working to address gender diversity, but only 29% actually have a plan in place to improve it. That's crazy. Yeah, for me, that's mad. So as a proud,
they need the book.
Sorry?
They need the book.
They need the book. They do. They need to get this book here. So, but yeah, proud patron. It's our responsibility to continue to hammer home the message. And you know, for me, it'd be great to see more women considering this sector as an area that's right for them, because only by harnessing diversity across all areas can we continue to be innovative. And really, it's about sustainable long-term growth as well.
You see, and I think what you've just said there ought to make everybody in the room from other industries a bit worried, because if you're changing the game and welcoming all the best young people from schools into your industry, then automotive is going to be in the lead at attracting all the best talent. So everyone else out there needs to think like this for their own industry. Surely they want to. So thank you for that, Stuart. And Diane, for you, can you tell us about your experience being involved in the schools programme and the positive impact on young people from your perspective?
Yes, definitely. First of all, thank you for welcoming me today. It's really good to be involved in this, and congratulations to Julia on her book. I'm looking forward to reading it and getting and sort of seeing all the things that you've put in there. As far as we're concerned, I've been working with Julia now for a number of years, and it was originally we met through being invited at my previous school. I took some young girls to a inspiration to inspire girls into Automotive Day. The day was absolutely brilliant. The people that they met there, and they came out buzzing and really thinking to themselves, actually, this is something I could do. I didn't realise the options that were available. It also changed my mindset as well, because I hadn't really thought about these sort of things before. As a teacher, you sort of, you get into a mindset and you don't think about everything that's out there in the outside world. It had an impact on my family as well. I mean, Julia knows my daughter has actually now got a successful career in automotive, which it was through somebody that I actually met that day at that event. So it sort of escalated through that. We're now involved, as you know, with the Inspiration for Innovation with Silverstone, and at King's Hall College we feel really privileged that our students are getting into a programme that we're able to offer them opportunities that we wouldn't even have been able to think about before. The difference in the students, the current year 11s are the first students that took part in the programme. And we're already noticing, Jenny Lau, our cruise advisor, has said that when she's doing the one-to-one interviews with them, they are on a totally different level to the students of previous years, because they've been inspired through all of the things that we've done, which is mainly the Inspiration for Innovation events. And it's opened their minds into thinking about what they want to do for their future, what they can do. So when they go into the meetings with her, they're actually going with ideas on what they want to do, rather than just sitting there saying, well, I've got no idea. And it's a totally different conversation that she's having with students. So it's impacting now, as I say, on our current year 11s, and it will impact throughout now, because the mindset of our students is changing. After they've experienced the events, we get emails from parents saying, their child has gone home inspired. They've talked about, the things that have happened that day and the people that they've met and the things that they could do with their future that they've never thought about before. And this is what we've got to do. We have to inspire them, because if we don't, bring these things to them and open their eyes to what's available outside, they're never going to understand, and they're just going to end up in jobs that at the end of the day is not, how can I put it, that they're not going to enjoy, because that's part of your career. We all go into a career that we enjoy, and I think that's what's important.
That's right, and I think it's
and
about
if they can go
that
into something
information to them, isn't it? It's the they, you know, like everybody else on the planet, they don't know what they don't know. So to bring the information in and give them that environment to be encouraged to do their best and to realise what opportunities are out there. That's what that's all about. And I know, Julia, you have been working on this, like as Diane said, on other inspirational programs other than the Silverstone one, which we're really delighted to be in. I think it's a 3rd or 4th year now of that. But you know, do you want to say a bit about that, and also about what Stuart and Penny have been saying about being an inclusive leader and how that leads a lasting legacy? Clearly there's something there in Diane's experience with the young people. Do you want to say a few words? I'm conscious of time, but
yes,
please.
I'll keep it very short. But so thanks for those that wonderful endorsement of our programme, Diane. So yes, what the point I make in the book, and I'd like to make now, is that we do this, we get gender balance and we get business success, but we also help society by doing this. So by being an inclusive leader, more people will be treated equitably and with dignity. And you know, if you can do that and relieve any bias or prejudice against your employees and their families, then you will have made a hugely positive impact on those people. And you'll inspire the next generation, as Stuart and Diane have mentioned, and Penny. You know, I can remember the joy on the children's faces with the Volkswagen Group camper van arriving, and they were allowed to climb all over it, and also the 3D goggles that Keyloop brought along to the events, really opening their eyes. And we can all identify a person who inspired us in our formative years, that helped us to choose a career lifestyle, and we need more people to be that person for one of today's youngsters. So more women will fulfill their career potential if we take this journey. But I'll just finally end with more men will fulfill their carer potential. The anthropologist Margaret Mead said that every time we liberate a woman, we liberate a man. Because by adopting flexible, agile and remote working, more men are having time to spend with their families. And key studies have found that fathers' involvement with their children and their learning is linked with positive educational and mental health outcomes. So there are so many positive impacts on the wider society of us doing this that you know, I urge everyone to start the action.
Thank you so much to all of you for an inspiring session. I think we could have spent the whole hour on this actually, and maybe we need to ask you back for another session where we can pick your brains and do more and hear those great stories about the students and the work that you're all doing. But unfortunately, we need to leave it there for today. But thank you for joining in launching Julia's book in this panel session, and for choosing to challenge, and for going through that process and setting the targets and learning the lessons, and being here to talk about that today to encourage others to do the same, because I think you're slightly ahead of the game and we need people like you guys, the pioneers, to sort of set the tone and show us that it is possible. We're going in the right direction. So thank you all for the panel. For the final panel session then, if I could ask John Birch, Andrew Dudley and Neil Matthews to join. We're going to talk about the project that MEPC is leading called Women into Construction. We will make sure we finish at 12, so we'll just do the same again really. I'd like to hear from each of them, just to give you an overview really of where we're at on this project. And we are working with Julia. So this is about business leaders using the book. That's basically where we're at with this last panel. So as a result of working with Julia, with the schools programme, with Diane, I was starting to think, you know, what more could MEPC do at Silverstone Park, as well as the schools programme, which was in a pilot year, and obviously we're in sort of year 3 going into 4 now. What else can we do to help companies to attract and retain the best young people? And I was listening to a Radio 4 discussion on Women's Hour back in August 2019, talking about the fact that in the construction sector, women only make up 1% of the manual roles. And actually the discussion was, in some other countries around the world, there are plenty more women. And it's really something in the UK, we're at the sort of lower end of performance on this one. And lots of discussion about school, perception of the industry, culture on site. And it really pricked my conscience and made me realise, you know, as a developer, asset manager in the UK, we work with main contractors and subcontractors and professional teams all the time. So I was really interested to know what our teams around the country thought about this. And I must admit, I did pick up that there was a slight unease and a discomfort from many quarters about how do we tackle this? Yes, we'd like to do something. We don't really do potentially enough yet, but okay, let's work together. And we invited everyone in November 2019 for an initial discussion. And we've gone from there really. And talking to Julia, especially with the book, I said, you know, would you come along, Julia, and meet with the group of 20 main contractors and the professional teams that we work with, and see whether we can put a programme together over 12 months to go through the book and think about, you know, the difficulties in changing the game in the construction industry in the UK for the better. So if I could start with John Birch from Glanville. You were at the very first meeting, and if you don't mind me saying, you did look nervous at that meeting, and I think you were one of the ones that said that 2-hour session had helped you to sort of think about the subject a bit and take it out of the too difficult box on the day. Could you just explain a bit about where you were at then and how you've made progress since, and what you're working on with me and Julia?
Sure, Ros. Well, thanks for inviting me to contribute today. I'm honoured on International Women's Day. Yeah, I mean, we've come at this from a standing start, really, at Glanville. We're a sort of medium-sized consultancy with just under 100 staff, and 25% of those staff are women. I think one thing I've realised is that whilst that's, you know, a reasonable statistic as a starting point, most of those women are at the sort of lower echelons of our organisation, and we need to support them to bring them through the pipeline up into senior management. But yeah, we've come from a standing start, and what the sort of sessions have helped me focus on are 3 key areas, I think. Putting diversity at the core of our business strategy and culture. So first of all, winning the hearts and minds of my fellow directors as to why that's important. And then secondly, explaining to staff what we're doing, and probably more importantly, why we're doing it, to get their buy-in, because it is about cultural change. It's not about anything else really. It's sort of some simple steps to try and change the culture and the mindset. Secondly, we focused on sort of our recruitment strategies. There is a massive skills shortage in the construction industry, so it's difficult to get a sort of gender balanced shortlist together. It'd be nice to have a shortlist at all in some cases, but looking at things like how we recruit, the wording of our job descriptions and things like that, to try and make sure they're not unconsciously biased and that they're as inclusive as possible. And then thirdly, looking to invest in coaching, sponsorship and development programs to make sure we develop our pool of talent, and as importantly, really retain them. You know, it's so difficult to recruit, as I mentioned, that actually retaining the staff that we have got is massively important. So it's really focusing on those three areas, and we're at the early stages of this journey. But I would echo what was said earlier about data. I think as an engineer, data is quite close to my heart anyway. But to collect the data and to use that to form a strategy, and then to use it with subsequent surveys, perhaps to track progress over time, is probably one of the key things I've learned. Brilliant,
thank you, John. Neil, Waits have already got a strategy and have made some changes to attract a more diverse workforce. Could you just talk a bit about that, and also how you're finding working with the group with MEPC, just briefly?
Yes, thanks Ros, and thanks Julia for inviting myself and certainly John and Andrew alongside this to give a construction side of the element. Waits have got a diverse and inclusion policy in place, and Nakunja's kindly joined the call as well as being inspirational within our company about changing things. We have a strategy, and I picked up Penny's note earlier on. It is about data and understanding where we are as an industry. And in Waits, we have a plan for 2025 of becoming a 40% women workforce within our company, whereas at the minute we stand in at 20%. Now that is an ambitious strategy, and I appreciate Penny's note of caution there. But what we do want to do is bring in the next generation. So that's all about working with schools and colleges and getting that educational piece in, because I think that's critical around where the construction industry can change its focus. We've got an ambitious target of bringing in 50% of our next generation and our skills through the schools and colleges programs and the early careers department that we have. Kindly got two who I see dialed in today, really, and I was quite surprised with Molly and Maddie, who are some future talent that I've certainly got within the Waits construction sector. Really proud to have them as part of the region that I take on board. But what we do need to do is not forget about that, as in forget about the people who are in that jobs and want to transfer into the construction skill. We talk around where the industry is in manufacturing, we talk about retail, and we've got to support them industries, because the construction industry is fantastic. And I think what we don't do is sell ourselves good enough around the support service jobs and the diverse and culture and workforce that we can do as part of, certainly as part of this call. And I'm happy and I'm thankful of yourself, Ros, and Julia, just to invite us onto this call and the working group.
Thank you, Neil. And Andrew, just before we run out of time, you joined the group at the start of the year. I think personally you've done some work in sport on the inclusion agenda, but it's now how you apply that to the workplace. And I think you said you found it quite an eye-opener. Can you just tell us in a few sentences about that?
Yeah, I'll try to be as quick as possible. Our business is potentially a little bit different from some of the others that have been mentioned. We're around about 100 strong, average kind of 2% turnover rate of staff every year. And in terms of our organisational structure, we're relatively flat. So when we were looking through our data, one of the things that we noticed was that it's pretty consistent year to year, and there's not much diversity through the data in terms of change yearly. So one of our biggest challenges was understanding that, and understanding that the family-run business that we are, we've got, I think it's 7 or 8 father-son combinations across all levels of the business, is how we then change our business to become more diverse. Because I hate to say that we reflect pretty much everything. We reflect every construction statistic about diversity. So understanding that, we looked at kind of what are the quick ways that we change, and it's pretty disappointing, is the honest truth, that we fulfilled several stereotypes. So every Friday we would put Men on the Move. Every month we would have an award which was Man of the Month. So those really small things that we were doing just subconsciously, because all of our labour force at that time was male. We changed all of those. We've changed all of the wording in our method statements, all of our policies.
And that's just recently, is it?
Yeah. So those are, like I say, those are really small things. And then kind of probably the thing that we should be most proud of, which one of my colleagues, Lee, has developed. Lee said that we have this kind of father-son attitude that's generated through the business, and it's developing that and changing that to father and daughter, which has actually got a really powerful message alongside it, because it's helped change our culture on site. We've spoken to all of our operatives about how, if we developed this father-daughter culture, would you be proud to bring your daughter into your workplace? That's then helped develop that cultural change on site of something that is something that the construction industry shouldn't have been proud of. But by creating that connection, we've developed a far more inclusive attitude towards our on-site work.
That's fantastic.
We're hoping to see it pull through. Some of the daughters aren't quite of a working age just yet. So
yeah, not yet. But then the other thing is that eventually, if it's all worked, you'll have mothers with their sons coming to demolish some buildings. And I had a comment I saw just flash up on the chat to say none of what you've said are small things. And you know, Andrew and the rest of us, we've only been working together since probably the beginning of the year. So to have spotted these opportunities and made these changes so rapidly, and they're, you know, fundamental to how your business was ticking, you're changing the culture. You are actually fantastic to end on your story and where you've got to already with RMAC, and you know, really proud to be working with you and the others in Women into Construction to make these changes. And I think maybe that what we'll promise everyone is we'll come back next year and tell you the next chapter of how we've got on with the work we're doing, because it is it's going to take a while, and none of these things that you're picking on will help overnight. It's going to take tenacity, but very worthwhile to just keep working on it and work on it together. Julia, I don't know if you want to switch your camera back on, because we're about to close and it's your book that we're launching, and it would seem strange if you weren't still in the picture. I wanted to say that it's been a real treat and a great start to the week, and great to have the chance to mark International Women's Day by launching your book, Change the Game. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to and getting, you know, listening to the diverse voices, the people that are working with you, and want to thank them for their time as panelists today, and obviously for all the work they're doing to choose to challenge, and thank you, Julia, for being so willing to launch the book with us.
Thank you very much, Ros, and thank you everyone else that's not only participated and shared their own stories and views, but also everyone that's joined the call to listen. And you know, I've seen that Penny has very kindly offered to talk to people, so about if they want any advice. So and my email is always accessible to everyone as well.
Great, that's such a good offer, and I would say that, you know, hopefully the session has inspired you all. You can put your cameras back on now if you want to. I just wanted to close by just encouraging you all to, you know, think about what you've heard about today. Hopefully it's inspired you that business leaders are choosing to challenge, are choosing to identify barriers, to create diverse workforces, and realise that it's not an overnight easy thing to do. But if you can start identifying barriers to women joining, then you can start thinking about how you're going to break those barriers down, and hopefully you're all going to you know, aspire to be inclusive leaders, because that is what we need for a successful workforce economy, surely, in the 21st century. So thank you all for joining. Hopefully it's been helpful. I'm conscious that it has been a lot of talking at you guys. There hasn't been a section of Q&A, because we wanted to keep it as a launch to 1 hour, and then we thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we can hear all these voices and bring that to you. But we would love to hear more from all of you, and we have the STC Gender Equality and Diversity, the next event, I believe it's the 23rd of March, and that's on the STC website. So we'll send you an invite to that. We'll send you a link to the book. We'll send you the YouTube video. Julia said you can have her email address. So we're leaving you with really no excuses not to do something next that's positive towards this. And if you'd like to join that STC committee meeting or have other discussions, let us know and we'll organise more, because This is where we should be, on the right side of history, dealing with this stuff for ourselves and our businesses today, and for young people coming through, so they don't experience any prejudice or nonsense that we did, and that we can really maximise all of those bright young things with the right attitude that want to come and work in our industry, male, female, and you know, everyone that will be retraining. And you have successful businesses, why wouldn't you want all people to want to come and work with you and for you? So I'll leave it there with a reminder on Amazon, 12 till 1, 99p to buy the book. And happy International Women's Day, people. I hope you have a good week, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.